How many of you know about the process of intoxication? Anybody out there? Anybody out there ever, I know you're, in your white robes and everything, and nobody has ever done it, but I'm sure that plenty of people out there know about intoxication, correct? That's when your blood is saturated with alcohol. In particular, though, what happens when you're intoxicated? Other than you stumbling around and everything, what happens to your demeanor, your thought process? Anybody know what happens? Here's what happens. Those things you normally have control of and can suppress, those things you don't do, right? Things you feel physically, you hold back. You say, nope, not today. When you're intoxicated, your connection, right, to your spiritual self is weakened big time. And so you throw caution to the wind. You start becoming something you're not. Intoxication is bad because of what? Because you have no self-discipline. You throw caution to the wind and you begin to act on every desire that you feel in that moment. Docile individuals become very rowdy. People do things they wouldn't ordinarily do and they get themselves in trouble. All of this because they start acting immediately upon desires. So whatever comes into their mind, they act on. If we did that in real life, all of us would be condemned more than once, right? We'd already be down in the pit right now. There'd be no redemption for us. Part of the gift of the Spirit, having a born-again spirit, is that your born-again spirit has a whole set of desires different than that of your flesh. And so you often tell your flesh, not today. I will not act on this or that. And also, because you can suppress or purge yourself from things, you tend to relate to people who are feeling this way. It's just like if you see somebody that's upset, you can often go to that person and say, hey, I've been upset too. Let me talk to this person. And you can talk that person down. Why? Because you know what it feels like to be upset. But if you're intoxicated, right, you throw caution to the wind, you begin to act out those desires. No spiritual oversight whatsoever. Also, whatever you act, when you act upon those desires, it's almost like those desires are amplified. You guys know what I'm talking about? They're intense. They're very increased. Seems like you just throw caution to the wind. You begin to do things without thought of any type of, feedback in the negative sense. You don't think about consequences. You just go ahead and do it. You think about consequences later. You don't care at the moment. Those are spirits that augment or enhance those flesh desires. Maybe you don't know this, but darkness is almost like a thick air that hovers around you that's always waiting for you to act on negative desires. If you have a negative thought, or if a negative thought enters into you, and you begin to act on it, that thought is amplified. That's why people who argue, they often get violent to the point where they would almost strike someone. Now, a docile person who enters into an argument can almost lose control. But sobriety, because they're sober, they can catch themselves. It's almost like you hear yourself going out of control and you say, not today. Let me cool off. Let me do something else. This is not right. So your morality kicks in, and you don't do those things. But when you're intoxicated, when you're saturated, right, your connection to spirit is almost broken, and you begin to act on pure flesh desires. And other spirits will enhance those flesh desires. That's why Jesus says, I know the spirit that's in man, right? In older statements, that phrase was, I know the spirit in the flesh. So we're born with some bad stuff. But thanks to God, we don't act on everything we think about. Isn't that awesome, right? Because we think about it a lot. We don't do everything we think about. So, but I'm talking about intoxication. It's very important for you to know. Here's why. Where does your body come from? What is it made out of? Anybody know what your body's made out of? Let's say it's a set of organized systems that come directly from the earth and the elements of the earth. All the radioactive elements you have in your body, gold, silver, tungsten, you have it in your body. It's all in your body, right? So your body is made of the earth. And when you die, you go back to the earth. Well, unless you're E.T., but you go back to the earth. That means your body's prone Just like the earth is prone to changes, so is your physical bodies. Many of you were asking the question. I never give you an answer, but I told some people about 10 years ago that your bodies were going to change. Well, I guess nobody quite knew how, but they believe it now. Some people really believe it now. Your chemicals in your bodies have altered a bit, just like the earth is altering. In fact, whatever changes in the earth reflects upon your body. Even your body's natural frequency of 2.4 gigahertz is tied to the earth, because the earth regulates your frequency of your body. Without the earth, you probably couldn't survive. They found this out in the space program. They had to replicate all the frequencies, all the magnetic field lines, just so they can go into space. If they don't have that, neurological connections break. After a certain point, if going out in space, you just can't do it. Your neurons, they don't fire right. Things don't work right because you're outside of that controlled field that allows the body to operate the way it does. And when this happens, if you have a weak connection to your spirit, you have no regulation over what you do. A lot of people revert back to animalistic type behaviors. The two cosmonauts, they sent up toward each other to shreds. They came back down to Earth on some automatic return. But it was talked about for about a month, and then it was kind of stricken from all records or whatever, right? There's still a lot of medical studies on that, but their neurological connections, especially their frontal lobes, it was almost like they were severed from their bodies. So they had no control over what they were doing. It's almost like having a traumatic brain injury, right? And of course, these dark spots form when you do scans of the brain, when you have TBIs. And in those dark spots are where fluid builds up. And when fluid builds up, you lose control over certain aspects of your emotional state. So you can become severely angry for no reason. Sound familiar? In other words, your negative emotions are enhanced. And when you cry twice as much. And when you're angry twice as much. Anybody? Can you relate to that? It's almost like being bipolar. But you're just not diagnosed as being bipolar. Well, what is this stuff happening? Because I can almost guarantee you that you guys have been fighting depression. You've been fighting bouts of anger. You've been trying to suppress things. And many of you have been fighting a type of, like a slumber. Is that true? You've been fighting with yourself mentally, and that fight is becoming harder and harder. Anybody? Your bodies, some of your bodies, especially females, are prone to some of these changes in the earth on a whole different level because you're tied to so many different systems of the earth. But since the earth is changing, your body is changing with it. Do you know that murder has gone up 322% in the last 3 months? There was one individual talking about this, and I believe, and this individual was supposed to be on, I don't know where they got there or not, but he was supposed to be on Fox News. But he was supposed to disclose some very important findings concerning crime. I'm not sure if the audience paid attention or not, but he most certainly was supposed to do that, right? Now, do you also know there are scriptures in the Bible where God said the riders of the horses were going to be stricken with madness. So men's minds, they're going to go mad, crazy. There are other texts that say the exact same thing. As we continue to go on throughout these days, people are going to become quite violent, quite depressed, under siege, it will seem, by things of the flesh. More and more medications are going out, mental medications to a lot of people. Never be ashamed of that, folks, of any kind of mental medications. Never be afraid of that, right? That's man's attempt to get you back under control so you don't go too far out of control. They try to make you docile again. It's kind of like a tranquilizer to balance the chemicals in the brain, whatever process they take. The unfortunate thing about mankind is, I'll go ahead and tell you this, is everything mankind makes is imperfect, right? That includes everything. I had a talk this morning about pharmaceuticals and about food. And believe it or not, the food is destroying people more than anything you could ever put in your body. There's some things, Doritos can take you out of this world. Most of the people that are alive right now, they suffer from sugar and diabetes, right? High blood pressure, things like that. Why? Because of the foods they've been eating. In fact, the foods you have been eating are so devastating that it has altered most of the newborns. How many of you guys pay attention to what's happening to all the babies? Anybody? Oh, this is where people are listening up. You ready for this? I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. So get your, I know you're going to start searching on Google. They're going to have to come up with something for this one. They're going to come up. In fact, you guys are going to hear this conversation come up in the public domain. They're going to have to address it because the internet's about to blow up with this one comment. Now, I haven't heard this comment anywhere, right? Not that I'm the originator of most things, but I just don't think like other people do. So I doubt if it's out there. But here it is. You ready? Most of the newborns that are born in this day and age, they cannot drink milk. They have to be put on soy milk. They cannot drink regular milk. Nobody says anything. That's a huge one. They can't drink milk. They can't. They can't drink milk. They're put on soy milk. What's causing that one? Right? Most of you guys who are, if you're in the age range of, if you're about in your 50s right now, in your 60s, I'll say 60s, very low 70s, 60s, 50s, and 40s. You're having teeth problems. A lot of you are having teeth problems. You know that? Why? What's happening to your bones? You're having teeth problems because here's where we messed up. We trusted prepackaged foods. We don't know what the process is. We see it in the store wrapped up as relatively clean. We go get the thing, right? We go get it, fully trusting people to do the right thing, but that did not happen. I can share with you guys the process. Here it goes. Let me show you a process that normally happens and people don't miss. And this is why I know a lot of people are concerned about the vaccine, right? But I'll say it again. Anything man makes is imperfect, and it normally harms the human body because they are not God. But food is more dangerous. Twice, I'd say it's about 1,000 times more dangerous than a vaccine. I would. Food. And this is why you have to pay attention to things. Here's what we did, though. We messed up. We did that. We messed up. We got greedy. We did like Doritos and all these prepackaged snacks they had, right? Then we did take our kids to McDonald's. They're stuck on growth hormones, so they're quite large these days. Have you noticed that also? What's going on with these large kids? Have you noticed that? Anyway, here's what we did. We got lazy. When the 80s rolled around, right? Especially 70s, TV dinners, microwaves, and all that. When that stuff rolled around, right? We became so hooked on that stuff, and it was so fast and convenient. Everybody wanted to do it. We never thought to question what they were putting in the foods. Here's how it works. Is McDonald's guilty? Of course not. Is Burger King guilty? Of course not. Is KFC guilty? Of course not. Because what they do in their main manufacturing plants is they call up, Pfizer. Well, let me get this product and let me get this preservative, right? And this is, the FDA standard to go ahead and package this. And so you have these other pharmaceutical companies making preservatives, making all that, these nutrient replacements. They order that stuff, put it in the food because they're told to, and then package it up, sell it to you. So it's almost like corporations out there who are in charge of the medications dump stuff in the foods as preservatives, right, under other subsidiary names, and then the people store that stuff, they package it, they go sell it to you like your meats are not fresh, right? They're just not. They use something called meat paste. That's why your hamburger can be red on the outside, brown on the inside. What is that all about? That's meat paste. Coloring and all that stuff anyway. So you think it's fresh. You go and get it, and you're good to go. You don't know where they're getting these crab from. When you go buy crab, or something like that, you go buy your frozen crab, you don't know where they got that from. You don't know if they came out the Bering Sea. You don't know where they came from. You just go and buy it. You trust the manufacturer because they print the nutrient, charts on the box. You didn't ask to question where they're getting all this stuff from. And if you would ever check, and people used to talk about it on the internet, but it never gained momentum. They used to warn people, hey, look, you might want to check ingredients. And then this sugar-free stuff came up. But that had RNA in it. Do you know what happens with embalming fluid? Embalming fluid promotes RNA radicals, right, in the system. Or let's say not RNA radicals. Let's just say that it will promote a weakness in your cells that your DNA starts to change. And in fact, that was the same time cancer broke out. Well, all this sweetener and all this stuff is nothing more than embalming fluid. And it activates at your body temperature. Isn't that something? Anyway, so people are taking all this stuff and then they clog up their arteries. You have to have copper and lots of copper, lots of iron, lots of silver and zinc and all these things, but you cannot take them individually. God already made plants that are perfect factories. And what they do is they take dirt and raw minerals and everything else, and they perfectly combine them if that plant is edible. They have perfectly combined, filtered, and fixed the elements for your consumption. That's not what we do. So instead of eating vegetables, right, they already replace the soil, so you can forget that. They're not nutrient rich. In fact, most plants don't contain chromium bicolinate. Sweet potatoes used to be loaded with chromium bicolinate, which kept people healthy. Onions used to be loaded with several minerals that they don't get now because K1 soils are artificial. They have nothing in them. So we've been eating foods with no nutritional benefit whatsoever, which means we've been suffering from a lack of what the body needs. And every 3 days, your body tries to prepare itself. And every 7 days, your body indeed does rest. But we've not been giving it the right things because the manufacturers don't put it in the manufactured food of which we get from the store. We trusted them too much. We never investigated. People didn't really call and say, wait a minute, you can't give our children this. No, they wanted something quick to shut their children up so they can get back to work because everybody was trying to get rich. Everybody wanted to live the American dream. And when you start moving too fast and you want that big house and you want your bank account full and everything else, you just feed them what you can feed them to shut them up, and you go back to work and make all of what you can make. We messed up. We did. We messed up. We did not petition for accountability of what they were putting in there. We didn't investigate. We trusted humanity too much. That's what we did. We trusted humanity way too much, and things got out of control, and now people are suffering. Listen, we are devolving. Our minds are slower, right? Our minds are. Have you noticed some of the new kids now? There are certain things they cannot tolerate, they cannot eat, they will not eat. If you try to make them eat it, they're going to have a conniption fit. It's almost like they're a whole different branch of people. I've identified 4 different types of children born in the world right now. Something is seriously wrong with that. Can you say hybridized program? But these kids are very different. They're very different. But the fact that they cannot drink milk, there's something that's very off with that. Very off with that. So, having said that, your DNA is not the same as it used to be. Humanity's DNA is by no means the same as what it used to be. Even your bone count has changed underneath your noses, and most people don't know this. The body chemistry is different than what it was 10 years ago. Humanity is totally different, and that's an induced change, not from the environment, not from carbon in the atmosphere. No, that's purely from diet, only from diet. That's where it's from. We trusted them too much, and we do it all the time. I'll say it again. Anything mankind makes is imperfect. What God made is perfectly balanced, and you can take that plant or whatever it is growing out there, eat it, and it has medicinal purposes for the body. It has healing. It kicks out germs and everything that shouldn't be there, right? But man in his infinite wisdom messed up twice because we started taking medications and antibiotics, didn't we? We gave birth to superviruses. We did that through antibiotics. Now, in the world right now, they're classified over 200 different superviruses immune to antibiotics. Now we're going to have to hunt down a bunch of giant viruses to kill those viruses. That's the only way to do it. Because a giant virus contains another type of antibiotic in it, which will hunt down smaller viruses and kill it. So we have to kill super viruses with a giant virus that can also kill you, right? And that's so that, we got about 4 more months right there before a severe breakout happens. Again, not from COVID-19, but indeed with something else. COVID-19 almost set the pathway for something else, which is why I was pleading with people. And I said, hey, look, COVID-19, that's going to be a test to see how we react to something very real. And we didn't react very well. We're too paranoid. We think somebody's always trying to kill us. Let me tell you something. Do you know how many people Tylenol killed? Tylenol. Do you know how many people have ulcers and they died as a consequence of those ulcers and by infection? They died of those ulcers from taking Motrin. Do you guys know this? Maybe you don't. You start looking at these reports and you'll be shocked and surprised. We're killing people every day through negligence and things that we do all the time, faster. And this is why a lot of people don't understand when I talk about the vaccine. It's because people bring up something that's controversial and say, don't take it, it'll kill you, when they're already eating something else that's already killed them off. We're walking zombies in this world, most people are. We're not doing a thing to get ourselves back to where we should be. How many understand now that you struggle in your mind to do things you used to do without effort? How many people have been struggling with memory issues for years, but you didn't tell anybody? You don't remember how you used to. You have to catch up on a subject. You have to refresh yourself on a subject. You can only keep it for about 5, 6, 7 days, and it's gone again. Unless you're, I'm blessed with a photographic memory. So I can, do little things that some people can't. Artists can do that sometimes. But as far as memory is concerned, you can forget it. My memory is zapped. I found that out years ago. But it's getting better because I changed something in my diet. That's the brain is good for the brain, which is why I'm a protein nut. I have to have proteins because my body has severe damage. I neglected my body. I told you guys that I volunteered for too many dumb things and tore it up is what I did. Having said that, children are different. And because children are different, and because we're different and things are happening in the earth, here's a question. You guys, I'm sure you want to know where all this aggression is coming from within you. How many have felt that aggression, right? One day I talked about it about a year ago. It connected with maybe 1 or 2 people. I'm going to say it again. How many people have been sitting there? You're doing nothing. All of a sudden you start burning up hot. Men having a hot flash, right? How many people have been sitting there and all of a sudden they get annoyed with everything? That has absolutely reversed into a type depression. You're going to have to fight to stay out of depressive states where it seems like everything is going wrong. Mankind collectively is paranoid. They don't understand. Listen, there's a big one out there right now that a lot of people have not looked at. All these situations happening in the world are like a tinderbox now. Any subject is highly explosive in a conversation. Things are highly politicized, or is it that we're highly sensitive to some of these conversations, right? Because you can go back in history and see they're talking the same talk they used to talk for many different years. But people are highly sensitive now. And you know what they're doing? They're looking for something wrong. Listen to me close. They can feel internally something is not right. You know that nervous feeling that people often get and they really can't shake? It's like something is wrong, like the butterflies in your stomach have just gone haywire. Something is wrong. You can't put your finger on it. Most people feel this way. They can't figure it out. They don't realize it's a spiritual shaking. They don't realize that. There's something wrong, and what they do is they go around and look to see what they can blame it on.